with, which is always fun. As we move over, we're talking about contracts, right? We're going to move over to our Seattle Sounders here, who made some contract moves over the past week, re-signing a bunch of their players. Some really key contributors for last season. Kellen Rowe, Federal Way native, signed a 2-year deal that ends after 2023. Stephen Cleveland, who started 15 games while Stephen Fry was out, signed a 2-year deal with a club option for 2024. So, the goalkeeper who looks to be the heir apparent for Stephen Fry locked up for a longer-term deal. Will Bruin, the Bear, signs a 1-year deal with a club option for next year. Alex Roldan locked up for 3 years with a club option for 2025. So the Seattle U defender, who has really come on in the last season, come on strong, gets locked up. And then Freddie Montero, the Sounders' all-time leading scorer, signs a 1-year deal with a club option for 2023. So go back to it like last week, pardon me. You and I talk about the Sounders locking up like a 90% of their key players from last season, and doing that now even more so. I hate doing these things. I hate being like, I hate giving predictions for like scores or the season, right? Because so much can happen, and I've seen it happen. Whether it's the Eagles back in like 2007, they have this like dream team supposed to go to the Super Bowl. Nnamdi Asomugha, Donovan McNabb, Deuce McCall, and then they do nothing, right? I don't like putting all my chips out onto the table, but you'd have to think with the success that this organization has year in and year out, with the coaching staff, like we just talked about with the Storm, having a successful coaching staff, adding an all-star midfielder in Albert Rusnak, signing the number 2 player in the country in Dylan Tevez. I have to think you're looking at a disappointing first round exit to Real Salt Lake in the playoffs, and you have to be looking at an MLS Cup in your own building. And I say in your own building because that means you win an MLS Shield and you have the most points in the league. I have to think that. Just because, just to go back to it, bringing all of those guys back who are key contributors, getting your leading scorer in Raul Ruidiaz locked up, getting a league finalist for MVP locked up, and getting all these. It's not like I look at the Sounders and say, you need to go out and get a center back. You need to go out. No, just bring your guys back. Yeah. And, because last season, as a guy who was in that press box through the end of the year, it's the right guys. They just weren't playing like themselves. Something was off. I couldn't tell you personally because I wasn't in the locker room itself, but something wasn't right with them. Even though they were winning team, they didn't win, and that means doesn't always mean losses, but with soccer, the ties, right? They had not won any of their last 7. That's bad going into the playoffs in any sport.
Yes.
It doesn't matter if you're the 1 seed. Seattle ended up being the 3 seed. They could have been the 1 seed if they won one of those games. It does matter how you finish, and not to use like a Pete Carroll try, but it does matter how you finish. We're looking at the Niners right now in the playoffs, and you probably don't want to talk about the Niners, but they were a team that week 15, I don't know if they make the playoffs. We're sitting there kind of wondering about it, and they're getting hot at the right time. I know gets used all the time, but it mostly is true, right? With Chicago in midseason, I wasn't thinking about Chicago winning the title in the WNBA. I did not think of that then. They get hot at the right time. So it is important how you finish, and Seattle was on the downward spiral at the time for the Sounders there. So I don't know. Do you think? I think we're looking at title or bust. I don't like ever saying that because there are other teams that play in this league, and people get paid to play this game and to win games. So I don't like to say it's like a surefire thing, but I don't know. How do you feel about it with the Sounders?
It is title or bust, I think, especially with bringing back so many of the same players. I think they hope that they'll move forward a little bit more than they did last year, and they think that they can do it with the same group of guys and with some modifications, of course. But they have faith in this team, of course, enough to bring, like you said, 90% back of their team back. And you said there was just an aura that didn't feel right about their game. And maybe they realized it too, and they think that they can make minor tweaks and come back strong.
What it seemed like, if I'm going to tell you my opinion, because again, in sports journalism, we can only speculate so much unless it's actually given to us by the players, because again, we're not in that locker room.
Right.
And unless it's officially confirmed, then, it's just kind of speculation. But, with playing last season, with the circumstances that were in place, with losing a ton of guys to international break, losing a ton of guys to injury, and he kind of peaked at midseason. You were losing all these guys due to injury, international break, and you were still number one in the league. Well, number one in the West. New England had a great season, whatever. It's got to be draining, because you peak at the top of the season, and guys never really get back into it after not being healthy or not being with the club enough to do international. It's just like you don't really get fully comfortable. So I'm sure that played a role in it. I know that the season this year has been sort of pushed up to make way for the World Cup this upcoming year. But I think that, keeping everybody healthy is one thing. But I'd have to think making sure you get guys to play with each other and that they're acclimated with each other. That is, if we're looking at all the scopes of all the teams in Seattle right now, outside of maybe not even the Mariners, because I have confidence they'll make the playoffs, just not make it all the way. Sounders are the only team that I look at right now as real championship contenders, not the Seahawks. The Storm, again, it all starts with Jewel.
Yeah.
Kraken, no. The Rain, I could see it. But the Sounders are the team I'm most sure about being true contenders right now.
They always give us exciting seasons. I know as a Seattle native, I haven't actually been to a game myself, unfortunately, but everyone always enjoys their time at a Sounders game, and they most of the time come out with a winning record. So yeah, it's exciting.
I mean, not missing the playoffs in their MLS incarnation, that just tells you, to me at least, it tells you all you need to know.
Yeah.
And we'll have to change that thing about not making to a game, because they start in late February. So it's not like that's too far away.
Yes.
And other Sounders news, Andy Rose, former Sounder player, joins the team as an assistant coach, having spent his 10-year career with some in the MLS, most of it in the MLS, some over across the pond, spending 7 seasons with both Seattle and Vancouver. And then we're talking about, those games getting underway. The Sounders announced their preseason schedule, January 14th through 23rd. So we're already done with that. Training in Seattle, January 24th through the 1st of February is training camp in Tucson, where the Sounders will play versus 2 scrimmage matches versus the Portland Timbers and Colorado Rapids. February 2nd through 8th is training back here in Seattle once again. And then February 9th through 15th, the team will travel down to Palm Springs to train, and then also playing a scrimmage match against the LA Galaxy. So in terms of looking at that and then getting to a real game, because I know I told you games and then I told you about preseason, the Sounders played their first game is a CONCACAF Champions League game, February 17th at Montagua at the 6 p.m. kickoff. And then the next leg of that will be back here in Seattle on the 24th.
Exciting things to look forward to for sure with the season.
Like I said, the team that I'm most convinced about being a contender. And I really hope I don't have to look at that at the end of the season and go, man, you were wrong about that. The old takes